It's Friday night. You're ready for the weekend. It's 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. Here on your social media platforms. It's ready for another edition of Pre-Flight. You may ask yourself, what is on the agenda tonight? Well, we are going to delve into one of the great neo-noir action thriller writer-director, Michael Mann, the man who helped create Miami Vice. We're going to be looking at one of his best films from his early part of his career. I mean, this film in itself has a great cast, some good action, and one hell of a kick-ass ending with a soundtrack on it. I mean, this is fantastic. This is well worth for your video shelf. And speaking on your video shelf, we're going to bring you his other classic that is been hidden from history. Unless you're a major film buff, most of you wouldn't even realize that basically the film Silence of the Lambs, one of the main characters of Silence of the Lambs, has been in a film previously on there, and it has been remade in this era. But the performance that this character gave in the original movie still is one of the best. Not insulting the actor, the Oscar-winning actor that portrays the same character in the Silence of the Lambs. He did a great job, but this one, you got to see it, and it's a must. It's a must for your shelf on there, and especially since it's directed by Michael Mann. All this and your comments, and of course we're going to be checking in with Spenguli, which is going to give us a TV movie twist this week on his movie of the week. All this and a little bit more. So get ready. Have your passports out. Get ready to board the flight back to the classics on this edition of Saturday Pre-Flight, starting right now. Well, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell, and you'll receive all of our notifications here on CutiCast TV and Saturday Pre-Flight. So welcome. First week out of November. We just passed through Halloween. The holidays are just around. Thanksgiving, could you believe it? Thanksgiving is just a couple weeks away. And then after that, Christmas and the end of the year, we'll get out of 2021. Will 2022 be any better? I hope so. But hey, listen, the way things are going right now, daylight is pretty far away. But at least we can bring you this great movies, stuff that maybe you've not heard of before. Movies that have good action, good drama, good acting, or it might be some crazy ass movie that it may be the worst film in the world, but worth to see. And that's what we bring every week here on Saturday Pre-Flight. And today's going to be no different. Tonight's episode is going to be no different than what we bring from week to week. But before we get started, what's going on out there? So let's check in with the Fast Five.
Five years ago, Thanos erased half of the population of the universe. But the people of this planet brought everyone back with a snap of a
Great
finger.
apartment in her building. Dirt cheap, but it's a hotel for women. Okay, we made one adjustment.
Now these other ladies know us as Buffy and Hildegard.
But they also know us as...
The Duke's son sees too much.
This is my June. Kill them all.
게임에 참가를 원하지 않는 분은 지금 말씀해 주시길 바랍니다.
Well, we're stuck in the 80s again. And we've been doing that a couple of times. Well, that's good, being stuck in the 80s, because it was a good time for movies and television. I mean, you could tout back to so many films, TV series. I mean, you have Arnold and Stallone and Willis and many others. You know, you've seen Predator, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, Back to the Future. I mean, the films that came out during the 80s were on top of each other. And, you know, some of them were good, some of them were bad, some of them were like never made it off the video shelf to this day. I mean, we have the third part of the Into Darkness, the horror film one documentary, the third part that talks about VHS releases. That a lot of them haven't made it to DVD or Blu-ray in releases on there, and they should be. They should. And it's the same thing with the action. There's tons of action, martial arts, sci-fi, all these types that have been around for a long time that still they need a remaster. They need some love. They need for you to go out there and bring them back to life. And then, of course, there are great TV series that should never, ever be rebooted. Ever. And they've done it with some of these TV shows. You know, we've seen stuff like Fantasy Island, and we see Magnum PI and the A-Team. And remember, this era brought us TV series like Airwolf, really great action series with a helicopter that was a high tech on there. I mean, we use science, we use technology, we use high-end tech, especially today where people are talking about trying to ban guns off movie sets after the situation with Rust, with Alec Baldwin. And basically, our technology has moved forward. We don't need to use blanks or anything in guns anymore. We could use technology to use handguns and machine guns and all these guns on the set. But when you look back at the way it was, I mean, they created some great action fights, chases. I mean, you can go down the list and do a top 10, and pretty much everybody's top 10 will be drastically different in many different ways. And tonight, you know, we're going to be talking about one writer-director who got his start on broadcast television and created some great films, and one of the top 1980 TV series of all time, which has been remade into a movie and talks they want to bring it back, which I always say, don't bring back this show. Don't bring back this show. If you're going to bring back this show, you make sure it stays in the 80s. You make sure it stays in the 80s. It doesn't deserve to be back. It deserves a great remastering. And, you know, I always say, what makes a good movie or TV series? A good script, good acting, and a kick-ass soundtrack. And one thing about this director, he has done it many times before, and still to this day, he doesn't get the full respect that he should. And that's the director, Michael Mann. Michael Mann is a fantastic director. He has brought out some great films in history. I mean, this is a guy who goes back and started with his directorial debut was 1979, which won an Emmy for the movie Jericho Mile, which is still to this day, some people still talk about it, but this is another movie that needs to be restored and brought back into the light. I mean, you look at a lot of these streaming apps now, and, you know, HBO and Showtime and Stars, Tubi TV, you know, those are channels out there that bring some good movies out there and some great ones as well, but they're missing out. Now, on some occasions, you may say to yourself, well, maybe it's because of rights issue. And that's right. And they should fight for the rights issue. A lot of these films are just sitting, gathering dust somewhere. You know, they need some love back in again. And like I said, Michael Mann started with this one, and then he came out in 1981 with a great film with a great cast that I'll tell you, it's a good neo-noir action thriller. We've talked about the neo-noirs before, and this one is a really, really good one. And also, this is the starting point for several people that are, you know, the names today. Jerry Bruckheimer served as a producer on this particular film we're going to be discussing. And also, this marks the first appearances of Dennis Farina, William Peterson, which we've talked about before on To Live and Die in L.A., James Belushi, the brother of the late John Belushi, and Robert Prosky. And the film we're going to be talking about tonight is the 1981 film Thief. And it also stars Tuesday Wells, Willie Nelson, and Gavin McFadden and Chuck Adamson. The backdrop of this film is based on the 1975 novel The Home Invaders: Confessions of a Cat Burglar by Frank Homier. Sorry if I mispronounced that name. And the main plot of this is about a thief, professional safecracker, who is trying to leave the business. What's that old joke from, is it Godfather 3? The more that I try to get out, they just keep pulling me back in. And that is what is the most of the premise here, is that basically James Caan and his wife Tuesday Wells are trying to get out of this business. And he's about to get a score that probably going to set himself for life and to get him out. And the thing is he has set himself up with businesses as fronts to his safe cracking, jewel thieving life. He has a bar and a car dealership, and he uses it as a front for the enterprises. But Frank, who's played by James Caan, wants a family life now. He wants, to fulfill his life, he wants to have a child with Tuesday Wells. But things goes wrong on his last robbery as he tries to fence the jewels. And basically what happens is his fencer, played by Hal Frank, Joe Gaggs, is murdered for skimming mob money. And basically the mob takes him out. And what happens is that basically Frank finds out who's responsible and goes back to get his money, because basically the mob has stolen his money. And the trail leads all the way to a high-level Chicago outfit boss, played by Robert Prosky, Leo. And he noticed the abilities that Frank has and wants him to work for him. But Frank is reluctant to work for him. He wants out. He just wants his money and leaves. And this goes into a whole situation where he's going to have to do a job for him, and the mob is trying to control him. Can Frank get away from the mob? Can he have a happy life with his wife, Tuesday Wells? Can he get away, take the money again, and run? Well, you'll have to watch the film, because I'm not going to give you the ending on it, but it is a good ending. And I'll tell you, the musical score is done by the great German electronic music band Tangerine Dream. Folks, like I said, a good soundtrack can make a good movie. And to have Tangerine Dream in this soundtrack is a great addition to this. I mean, originally with the soundtrack, Michael Mann wanted to use Chicago blues, but the thing about it is he wanted to have a resonance with the audience. So he flipped over and used Tangerine Dreams, which basically, it worked out for us, especially that like I said, the last minutes of this film, the soundtrack to the last minutes of this film is just over the top. It is just really fits in well. And when you see it, you'll understand why. And the thing is that, you know, with Michael Mann, a lot of the people that worked with him on films moved with him with other projects. I mean, the perfect examples with Dennis Farina and William Peterson, that they've done other work with Michael Mann. I mean, Dennis Farina, you've seen him in Miami Vice, the TV series Crime Story, which is another great. If you haven't seen Crime Story, also the TV series with Dennis Farina, great series. William Peterson, you know him over and To Live and Die in L.A. I mean, there are so many things that they've done all together. And of course, you know, William Peterson comes back in on another great film, which we will discuss this later, a little bit later on my off my video shelf. And that one is a really good, which basically I think that got him the CSI role, because I mean he was really, really good in that one as well. And we'll discuss that later. Now, as far as the reception, it holds pretty well. I mean, to this day, it's holding a 94% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is, it's based on 31 reviews. But hey, listen, let me tell you, let's see, a 7 out of 10 and 3.5 out of 4 stars. The only drawback that I think the critics had was the character Willie Nelson played in the movie, that he played it so well, where he played David Okla Venturi, a prisoner, a friend of James Caan's Frank. Basically, they wanted more of that. I mean, they wanted that character. I think they wanted more character development of it. They wanted to hear more about this character. And it happened to be, I think, for Willie Nelson, I could tap back maybe 2 other movies. One of them, a Western, which was Barbarossa, which Willie was fantastic in. Another a movie with Gary Busey, a Western with Gary Busey and Willie Nelson playing thieves, you know, sort of a ghost thief in a way. You have to see Barbarossa to understand it, because that's another one. And I think we will be doing something on that very soon on that as well. Funny part is that this movie won a Razzie for the soundtrack, which really, for the soundtrack, I mean, I thought the soundtrack fit in very well to this. And you have to remember, if you've seen something by Michael Mann, whether it's Miami Vice, whether it's Crime Story, whether it's this, you know, his soundtracks work very well. His cinema and the cinematography works very well. You know, light, shadow. I mean, you see the way the things to look. I mean, when you see the safe cracking scenes in this movie, the shot, it doesn't burn onto the film. It fits perfectly. It really does fit perfectly on there. And believe it or not, Jim Belushi was also pretty good in this role as well. I mean, this is early for him. This is very early for him. And, you know, when you hear Jim Belushi, you're expecting a bit of John in there. Jim is his own direction than John. And you can see the differences in performances between the both of them. Now, as for James Caan, you gotta love his career. This guy has been in so many films, you know, Golden Globe nominated, Oscar nominated. He has had a luxurious film career. I mean, he's done some crazy films, so you know, over the top. He's done some holiday films, kid stuff. I mean, this guy goes all over the map when it comes to his career. Of course, obviously being put opposite Tuesday Wells, the beautiful Tuesday Wells, who's also another award-winning actress. I mean, if you have not seen a movie with Tuesday Wells in it, definitely do catch something with her in it, especially especially with Arthur with Pacino. Looking for Mr. Goodbar is another one. Once Upon a Time in America. She's in that movie. Heartbreak Hotel, Feeling Minnesota. I mean, she has a career that it spans. And I'll tell you, it's fantastic. It's fantastic to see an actress like this in an action film to this nature from Michael Mann. And you remember, this is coming from a director and writer that has been nominated over 30 times between the Academy, BAFTA, Golden Globe, has won about 6 awards on there, including winning for The Last Mohicans. Actually, he's won major awards for The Last Mohicans on that one as well. The Insider, Ali, and Collateral were his other films that he was nominated for. And I'll tell you, his filmography, I would definitely do catch. There's another one out there that needs some love. Actually, it needs a full restoration out there. And if they could find parts of it, it's another one called a horror film called The Keep, which Michael Mann did with Scott Glenn. And that one had very good promise. But politics killed this as far as, studios, and there's so much. There are whole videos made just dedicated, just talking about The Keep on there, and how much of a masterpiece this could have been, and it missed its mark. But with Thief, this didn't miss its mark. It is a great film to watch, and I do recommend it. At the end of this program, I will tell you where you can grab a copy of this fantastic film. So let's check out on what's on my video shelf as we continue the Michael Mann retrospective with another great film that had a villain that has been known throughout, but this particular actor that played the role did it with such a finesse. Well, off my video shelf this week, in the genre of the neo-noir, we bring a psychological thriller from the writer-director Michael Mann. And let me tell you something. As far as performances, I have to say this is one of the best performances of a Hannibal Lecter character in any of the movies that you've seen. I mean, you've had 4 Hannibal Lecters in history. Hannibal in 2013 by Mads Mikkelsen. Hannibal Rising in 2007 by Gaspar Ulliel. Obviously, Anthony Hopkins in 91, 2001, 2002, which, Anthony Hopkins, I love him as an actor. He did play a great Hannibal Lecter. Some people like the Mads version on there. Not too many people like the Gaspar one. But I have to say, if you haven't seen this one, if you have not seen Manhunter, Brian Cox is excellent. If you're not familiar with Brian Cox is an award-winning actor. He's had many nominations, won many awards for many different films, series. He's been a voice actor on many different anime. He's been in stuff like Penny Dreadful, War and Peace. He's been on Bob's Servant, The Game, The Gospel of John. I mean, there are so many. He has a credit on Doctor Who, X-Men, adaptation, Troy. I mean, he has a big movie listing for himself. I would recommend getting this one. Obviously, if you're not familiar with Manhunter, Manhunter is based on the 1981 novel Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. And of course, they did do a remake of Manhunter called Red Dragon, which was okay, but it doesn't compare to the level of cinematography that Michael Mann could put out to you. It stars William Peterson. You know him from the TV series CSI, and also the discussions we've had to Live and Die in LA. It also features Tom Noonan, who happens to be very good in this movie as well. And Tom Noonan does play the serial killer, Francis Dahlride. Dennis Farina is in this, Jack Crawford, and of course Brian Cox is Hannibal Lecter. I mean, this is a fantastic portrayal of Hannibal Lecter. I mean, most people don't tout for this one. They always point back at either Mads or Hopkins, which are both very good actors once again. But the thing about it is, Brian brings the character out proper. Not saying that Hopkins didn't do a bad job. I think when you look at Silence of the Lambs, fantastic. But as he did the next two, it kind of changed a bit. You know, go back and look at these and then watch this role on there. Now, if you're not familiar with basically the plot of this, it is a FBI criminal profiler who has retired after being attacked by Dr. Hannibal Lecter, who he captured. And now that basically he's been pulled out to help on a serial case that basically that the killer's mindset needs an expert to draw him out. And of course, Graham is the man to do it. And of course, in the scales of Silence of the Lambs, Graham goes back to Hannibal Lecter to try to figure out who is the serial killer. I mean, this is a fantastic movie. I mean, if you loved Miami Vice, if you loved Thief, if you love anything else he's done, Heat, anything like this, is one that you need on your video shelf right now. And you have to remember, back when this was being put together, Mann was looking at Richard Gere, Gibson, Newman for this role. But after seeing Peterson on To Live and Die in LA, he said basically, that's the guy I need for this role as Will Graham for this part. And Tom Noonan, oh God, Tom Noonan is so, as a serial killer, also very, very well done. I mean, not to give you the whole backstory onto this. I mean, if you've seen Red Dragon, you know the whole situation between Francis and the other character. I think it's Reba, if I'm not mistaken, on there. The love interest to the serial killer who happens to be blind. I mean, this is fantastic. And the thing about it is, Joan Allen, who is Reba, spent her time with the New York Institute of the Blind, learning to walk blindfolded for this role. I mean, this is the detail. The details when you do movies like this, when you're preparing for a role, you can't cheapen the role. You have to learn your character. You have to read up on, if this is from novels, from comic books, anything of the nature, or if another movie on there, look back at the references that you need to do this. If you're doing something on serial killers, you want to look back at the history of serial killers to put this character together. And in the case of Joan Allen, she went to the New York Institute of the Blind to teach herself how a blind person walks, the nature, what they do. And, she taught herself to be blind. And that's a fantastic role. And then, of course, we have Stephen Lang, who's in this movie as well. And, Stephen Lang, he has worked previously with Michael Mann where Michael Mann was the executive producer on another movie, which we're going to bring on my video shelf, Band of the Hand, another movie that was well done for that era, underrated as well on that. And the thing about it is, they did a great job. They did a great job with this, but they had some issues back and forth, including the filming. I mean, Michael Mann went out and had to buy plane tickets for a flight, take his crew so they could shoot one scene that they could not get the proper permits to shoot on an aircraft where they were able to rent it and use it to shoot. So they just shot the scene blindly on a flight right before the beginning of a flight real quickly, and it was done. And you don't even notice it. You don't even really notice it in the movie itself. You would think that it's a private flight. And the role, and the thing, another big thing is that the role of Hannibal Lecter went through a process as well. We had everyone from Lithgow, which, Lithgow, he was in the other series on there as a serial killer, would have been perfect for Hannibal Lecter. Manny Patinkin, the great director William Friedkin was considered, and Brian Dennehy. But Dennehy went to Mann and told him that Brian Cox would be the perfect recommendation for this role. Now, the soundtrack to this, it's not a major soundtrack, but it is really good. From the prime movers, the Reds, Michael Rubini, and of course, the famous song from this soundtrack alone to, I think, one of the best scenes in the movie, Inagata de Vida. I mean, to play that in the background was phenomenal. That brought strength to this movie itself. Now, getting to the cinematography, one thing about Mann, he has, of course, obviously, if you've seen Miami Vice, if you've seen Thief, Band of the Hand, anything else that he's done, one thing about the 1980s trademark that Michael Mann has had is the use of those pastel colors, Art Deco architecture, and glass brick. You've seen this many times in many of those earlier films. And basically, that is a great style to this. And, obviously, anytime you've watched a Miami Vice episode, the tone was always a great tone to watch any episode. I mean, there were a couple of episodes of Miami Vice that were so-so, but it brought out. And this is the same tone that he used and pulled away a little bit from the TV series Crime Story as well. He's able to take tones and bring them out, the lighting and everything, the positivity and the darkness surrounding it when it comes to something like a serial killer situation. I mean, this is fantastic. Now, of course, the movie was played with many situations during release. U.S., it grossed about, back then, that would be about $9 million U.S., which would be about the 76th grossing movie of that year when it was released. But because of situations with De Laurentiis Entertainment Group in the UK, the movie was postponed overseas for about a year. And it was screened at London Film Festival and a couple other places. The Cognac Film de la Procure, where it won an award. And it was also shown at the Cambridge Festival in Lodz, Poland. And, this did win some awards overseas, but the thing about it is, because the way it was done, as far as advertisements and stuff like that, it kind of lost itself. The critics weren't too great with it as well. Leonard Maltin gave it 3 stars, calling it gripping all the way through and surprisingly non-exploitive. Although he said it was a couple of holes in it, but I don't remember that many holes in that movie. I mean, there's 1 or 2 you could point out on there, but it's nothing that would basically shatter the film itself. Now, the thing about it is, later in time, Manhunter got a, believe it or not, there's a Laserdisc version in '86 on this. I know there are people out there with a Laserdisc version of this movie. It was also released on VHS several times through into the 90s, 2000. DVD versions also have been put out. Now, there is and I tell you, be careful. There is an MGM version on the I think it's on DVD or Blu-ray. Don't get that one. That's a pan and scan. Which I was told not a good one. There is a Shout Factory version. If you could find it, you might be spending a chunk full. I've seen $100 for one, up to $241 for this one. There is a Studio Canal did announce back a couple of months ago that they were doing a 4K restoration of this movie, yet to be released, from what I've seen on there. So if you want to catch this, I would say you probably might have to rent it out from a streaming app. I haven't seen it on any major streaming apps as of yet, as far as, like Tubi TV or a Pluto TV, but you probably might have to pay Amazon to watch it, or one of the other companies on there. Like I said, it is really good. A lot of the people that were in this movie, this was their first tout together on this, and they did a really, really good job. And the legacy of Michael Mann. He's done many great TV series, movies. I mean, another movie that I love from him is Pacino and De Niro in Heat. If you haven't seen Heat, oh man, that is a great film to get on 4K, if it's out on 4K. I think it is on 4K. But Manhunter, in the last couple of years alone, this has been getting a second light. This is why it's hard to get, because basically it's gotten a second life just on DVD and Blu-ray. I mean, you can't get any better than this. I mean, we've had, and next week we're doing a, by the time this airs, the poll will be over, but we're doing a poll on Twitter that basically, which is your favorite of the 4 Hannibal Lecters? Last I checked at the time of this recording, Anthony Hopkins is up on top, but that could change at any time. But believe it or not, a lot of people have not seen the Brian Cox version of this. And I'll tell you honestly, go get this. Go see it wherever you can. Yeah, even if you have to go to the high seas, go check it out. I mean, it is well worth. This happens to be like, it is a really good serial killer movie. It is really well done, and you see this. And this is the early part of Michael Mann's career. You have to remember, he's just gotten his legs in the water at this point. Major TV series, several movies on his belt, and more to come. I always said, any major director, always go back to their first movies, whether it's Spielberg, Lucas, Hitchcock, any of the big directors on there, Orson Welles. Go back and see the original stuff that they put out first, because basically you would be amazed. And then when you look at their stuff today, you could see the evolution of their filmmaking. Because that's important, is the evolution. What do you start at and what do you become? That's like taking a piece of clay and you start to mold it, and it takes you years to get to the figure that you wanted to get. And that is the style that Michael Mann put out. That it's his style that he's been molding for several decades now. So that's what's on my video shelf for this week. Well, we've reached the most important part of the show. What is on your mind this week? Your comments, your mentions. How are you feeling out there? This week we got 2 different social media sites that have given us some comments, and we have a little thing at the end of this. So let's start over at BitChute and Random. They have destroyed the Superman legacy. And I have to agree with this. The comic book industry has been on life support for many years. I consider it pretty much about dead as far as the Marvel Universe, the DC Universe, and most of the major comic book industry. The only thing that is left is, what people tout as Comicsgate, indie comics, That's the only thing that's really left. I mean, I buy from Alterna Comics. Alterna is really good. I mean, if you want some good comics out there, some good stories, variations of stories, check their website out. They're really good. I mean, you know, you're hearing all these people put out comic books that have real good stories. I have one which I crowdfunded. I'm still waiting for that one. That one has been a bit delayed, but hey, I'm still patient for that. But you know, when you look to the perspective of what they're doing between comic books, television, movies, that they just, you know, they're trying to wave these flags, activists, grifters. I mean, they're trying to pander to people that basically don't really read the comics, number one. Number two, the ones that do don't want to see themselves. You know, we did that article that from Huffington Post from 2012 that says, you know, gay people don't see themselves in programming. They don't come around, you know, they say, hi, my name is John and I'm gay. You know, people don't do that. That's why you have a gay network that was out there that no longer shows any programming pretty much about, you know, gay characters. They're doing TV sitcoms, Married with Children, Laverne and Shirley, The Nanny. I mean, this is what's being put on there. Maybe once in a blue they might have a RuPaul Drag Race or direct you over to VH1 where basically they're showing RuPaul's Drag Race or whatever show RuPaul is doing these days, you know. To turn Superman gay, to turn Jonathan Kent gay is the most stupidest thing to do, and then to take away truth, justice, and the American way. These guys don't really understand. You know, they think that they're putting trying to protect everybody, trying to push forward an agenda situation, and they're not. They're not. They are the danger. You know, this is you know and I said this in the movie business from a movie point of view that this is Hays Code 2.0. You know, these are the things certain people don't want you to see in media. They don't want you to see good stories. They want to reflect what is going on right now. And you know, when you look to the perspective of when you're deeping into a book or a story like that, you're trying to get away from everything, you know, around you, all the issues and everything. You want a good story to read, you know. Comic book. I used to buy a lot of comic books. I used to spend so much on comic books. I don't anymore. I really don't anymore. I don't even where I live. I have only one comic book store left. That shows you how bad the business has become. And this is before COVID. This is before COVID. The comic book stores were dying in my neighborhood. You know, the last really good one that I had where I live, you know, I was shocked that he went out of business. That he really, because he had just moved into a larger spot. He had live events that were going on, that he had tailgate parties where basically if a big movie was coming out, like a Spider-Man or an Avengers, he would have a tailgate party and then everybody would move over to the movie theater, which was nearby, to go see the film itself. I mean, this comic book store was really fun. I mean, the only thing I really can go is to go back into Manhattan and to hit Forbidden Planet. You know, that's my other major one. Then there are two others on there. You know, Midtown Comics and Jim Haley's, which is I don't even know if it's still Jim Haley's anymore. I know, because the one out here on the island is the one that the last one left used to be a Jim Haley's. I think they changed the name. Thank you again, Rondom. Chris Dolan, one of our favorites, chimes in. I like Tubi and Pluto TV. Both of them are awesome. What keeps them free because of the advertising? Not everything can be free all the time. I realized it later that it won't be free, ad-free streaming services. You have to pay monthly prescriptions. I think he meant subscriptions on there in the end. I guess he typed that very quickly. But yes, that is correct. You know, other, some of our other viewers, say, well, Tubi won't be free forever. Okay, if that's so, enjoy it now. Why not enjoy it now? Because basically, you have all this going on, and Tubi now has sports, it has news, all live. The sports is near to live at the moment, but they'll probably, because it's Fox, they'll be live very soon because they're probably going to have to iron out the contracts of all the sports companies out there, from the MLB, NFL, NBA, to carry all of their events, or what events they can carry. I mean, could you imagine one day that the World Series is running on Tubi TV? Could you imagine that? I can dream of that. There are great entertainment. I mean, going over to Pluto, I mean, everything is live programming, and also they have a roster of movies in their on-demand section. So you have the best of both worlds. You have news, sports, movies, TV series, anime, gaming, all that in there. And you also have on-demand services. And it's free. Who can go wrong with that? And finally, one of our subscribers, brightest day for why, scraping the bottom of the barrel. That's right. That's talking about, all these reboots and remakes, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they have to go and change everything. I mean, we have a video that ran this week about the history of the world, part 2, being done over at Hulu/Disney. We had also the one of the directors of Airplane says, well, I couldn't make it today because I couldn't put the jokes in. It couldn't be made today. The thing about it is, if you have the will, the ability to do it, you can get it done. That's important. The other half is, stop taking things from the past. Stop with all these reboots, remakes, made for the modern era. How about some news stories? Guaranteed, 100%. There are people out there with stories ready to go. I know, because I happen to be one person that did send scripts when I was younger. And I know a lot of other people that send scripts to these networks, to these studios, movie studios, production studios. So if a lot of people have sent stuff in and these guys have just tossed it into the garbage, well, you're throwing away stuff that could work. And you already see this. You already see guys doing mini animations on YouTube and other social media sites. They're creating mini movies, horror films. A couple of the last directors of horror films came from making mini horror films on YouTube. They're doing horror shorts. Even the guy who did... what was that, District 9? He had a couple of shorts on YouTube. Really, really, truly, look, you, my viewers, take a moment. Go out and look at the type of content that's out there. Look at the content that is on YouTube, that's on BitChute and on Odyssey. They say that, especially the alternative sites, they said, oh no, it's all political, this and that. Yeah, you got your political things, but there's also stuff on there that basically is independent content, really good, enjoyable stuff. I mean, stuff that's really has some good action in it, some good effects. Same thing on YouTube. There are some stuff that's out there. I mean, it doesn't cost much to do a lot of this stuff. You know, one of the major things, and was actor John Schneider had said, and going into the Rust situation with Alec Baldwin, is why are they using the guns the way they're using today, when special effects can, you know, has improved shooting a gun in a movie? Why do they have to do it the way they do it? It can be done with, you know, without having any blanks, without, just clicking the gun itself, clicking an empty barreled gun, or using a prop gun. You're using a prop gun that's completely out of plastic, that just basically looks like the gun. And you don't even have, they want the emphasis for it to be completely real and to create all these dangers on set. But nevertheless, people have been doing it without that. Look online. I have done back in my youth. Me and certain people that I used to work with, we used to make little videos where, we'd done gangster stuff, where, bad guys versus good guys, cops and robbers, where we used plastic guns and we added sound effects to it. And this is before visuals were even put into it, and it sounded right. Why is Japan and most of Asia putting out real good material? Because they don't deal with this woke bullshit. They don't deal with the activism and how it is. Why do you have people creating lists of what to put into a movie and not into a movie, who to hire, not to hire on there? When it comes to award ceremonies, you have to make sure you have X amount of people of this minority and the people. That's incorrect. That's Hays Code 2.0. I said it once and I'll say it again. Hays 2.0. Hays Code 2.0. Go back to the Hays Code back in the 50s. Look it up. Look what they used to decline that you would not consider being, wrong today. And they're trying to make it wrong again. Hollywood has failed the American and the world consumer of entertainment. They have failed. Maybe it's time for them to go, and a new type of Hollywood to rise, an independent, a much more braver producer, writer, director. There's so much on a blockbuster. Like for example, Dune. As much as it looks great, the acting is good on that, but it's not Frank Herbert's Dune. You're not going to get Frank Herbert's Dune. So stop making them. Stop making them. Go make something that you can make that people will understand, will enjoy, and that they will come back and pay money for it. Well, thank you for all of you who have commented. There were actually more comments, and I just want to bring this up before we really go tonight. One thing we've noticed on actually two of our social media platforms, that we get comments in there that are very unusual, and the person who handles our social media sites part-time has noticed that a lot of the comments are people who don't watch the video. And basically the thing about it is, if you're commenting on something that you're just going by the title, I mean, that's not right. Watch the video. We respect your comments. There's no problem. There's no problem whether you like or dislike the video if you in the comments section. If you put your 2 cents in. But if you see a video that might say, "Oh, Batwoman is just pure garbage," and someone writes in, "Well, you don't know what you're talking about. Why don't you give it a chance?" Why not watch the video and find out why I consider it garbage? I mean, this happens from time to time, and I know other YouTubers, other content creators have gone through this. And the thing about it is, the person that's handling my social media accounts, they remove these comments, so I don't get them. So a lot of times people have commented, well, why'd you remove my comment? I said there's two reasons why. One, especially if it's on YouTube, it may be the algorithm gods, because I know they have removed certain content from my comments lines. Two, it happens to be my social media person who basically looks at it and says, well, we don't need to respond back to that because they didn't watch the video. They didn't look at the video. Now, I can understand if you didn't understand the video, and you could tell that by the wording and stuff like that. But the person that I have working with me, they're very familiar with this, and they've handled stuff for other people before like this. So when they see certain words or things are worded a certain way, they know whoever comments in there, they're not commenting. You know, they're not commenting on the video itself. They're just commenting on the title, and they're upset about the title. And, you know, honestly, watch the video. Watch it. You know, if you don't want to watch it, that's okay. That's fine. But don't comment on something that you haven't watched yet. You know, it's very important. If you know, like, you know, I've always said, if you have an opinion, you know, we respect that opinion on there. But be sure to get your facts right. Get the facts right first. You know, that's very important. But then, of course, we have the other ones who are, you know, we get them every once in a while. We get the spammers and the trollers. You know, the trollers haven't been that bad. The spammers, yeah, that has been bad. It's been starting up again. And actually, YouTube has been handling that. That, I know at least YouTube has been handling it. Every once in a while, one or two will peek out there, and we get that as well. So once again, thank you again for all those who have commented. Yeah, it wasn't that many this time around. Again, like I said, this is the situation on there. And also, this is the slow part of the season for YouTube on there. Because basically, you know, on social media, we're going into the holiday season, and, you know, people are doing things at this time of the year, which is understandable. And because some of our comments that we do get are from videos that are very late. You know, they've already been weeks behind us, and that happens. I'm wondering, you know, we're past Halloween, we're into November. What's the first movie of the month this month on Svengoolie? I wonder what it is.
This week on Svengoolie.
Oh, hi there. I'm Herman Munster. Allow me to present my wife, Louis, and Grandpa, my handsome son, Eddie, and my niece, Marilyn, co-starring Terry Thomas and Hermione Gingo. We inherit $1 million estate and a mansion full of homicidal relatives.
See the Munsters in their first full-length feature in Technicolor. Munster Go Home.
See you at the movies.
Saturday night on MeTV.
That's right. They're re-airing a favorite out there. It's the 1966 Munsters Go Home, the Munsters movie, starring Fred Gwynne, Yvonne DeCarlo, Al Lewis, Butch Patrick, Debbie Watson, John Carradine, and Hermione Gingo. If I pronounce that right, I do apologize on there. This one is a fun movie to watch. If you have not seen this yet, I really, really highly recommend it. Especially now Rob Zombie's doing a reboot, and I'll tell you, I've already seen pictures of the characters on there, and I already don't like it. I really, really do. And you know, the thing about it is, I like Rob Zombie's style when it comes to filmmaking. But the thing about it is, you know, I was expecting more something like if you ever saw Mockingbird Lane, which was an NBC series out there, which was a reboot of the Munsters a while back. And that sort of had promise, but it didn't work out very well. But in this case, Munsters Go Home, it's basically the Munster family inherit a English estate overseas, and a group of criminals who are basically occupying their home are trying to get rid of them so they could take the fortune for themselves. Again, this is a fun movie. It already has aired on Spenguli and MeTV, but the cast is very good. The only difference is Marilyn is being played by Debbie Watson instead of Beverly Owen, who was on the TV series The Munsters. So that's the movie of the week. It's 8 p.m. Eastern on your local MeTV channel. And you may ask yourself, well, if I don't get MeTV, how can I get MeTV? Well, you go over to MeTV.com. There are several ways you can do it. One way is via antenna. And the other way is through your local cable service. Now, if you don't receive it through your local cable service, using antenna is your best bet. There are some changes on there. There is a YouTuber by the name of Antenna Man who may be able to assist you, as the FCC has condensed a lot of the channels into certain frequencies. There was a sell of frequencies to cellular companies, basically to advance the 5G parameters on there, and all the broadcast channels that were separate are now sort of crunched together. So yeah, you have to use the antenna in certain ways, and Antenna Man will be able to direct you the way you can pick it up. You know, because I know I've seen a lot of people says, I can't get MeTV, I can't get MeTV, and then when they're told, oh, well, if you do it this way, and they say, oh my God, I got it. You know, some places it is literally you can't pick up this signal, but eventually that will be remedied by MeTV as the network is continuing to grow, and they're testing another channel called MeTV Plus right now at the moment, which is probably going to be will be probably their app. I mean, the way it's looking at. I mean, right now they're testing it in 2-3 markets. Right now, one of them is Chicago, and I think the other one's on the West Coast. On there. So Munsters Go Home this Saturday night. So do check into it. It is really, really good. Well, once again, thank you for watching. You may ask yourself, what is on next week? Well, as we're easing into the holidays and we're out of Halloween, basically we are going to go into the mind next week. That's right, folks. We are going to take a trip into the mind with 2 films from the 1980s. One is a science fiction film. The other is an action horror. Even though it can be called a horror in a way, but I would more toss it towards science fiction on there as well. The main premise on this particular film that we will be discussing is a great film, great cast. Unfortunately, due to the tragic death of one cast member, this movie was almost not completed. And we'll explain that next week. And here's a little taste of what is to come. That's right, next week on Saturday Pre-Flight, we'll take you into the mind. That's 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific, on your local social media platforms, BitChute, Odyssey, and of course right here on YouTube. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all of your responses. Thank you for your subscriptions. We will see you on the next one. Stay tuned for where you can get these great videos that we talked about today. Of course, please support physical media. That is the best way. This will help to save the libraries and libraries of movies that are out there that are rarely discussed. That there are those of us here on YouTube that are willing to do what we can to bring to you weekly or daily, depending on which show you're talking about here on YouTube and all of our social media platforms, a program that discusses these particular movies and TV shows that have spanned for many decades. So once again, thank you for tuning in. The pilot has turned off the seatbelt sign. You may depart the aircraft, and we will see you next week, waiting for you at the boarding gate for another edition of Saturday Pre-Flight. Have a good weekend.